Hello, I'm Tom Palmer and I'm a children's author. I'm the author of the Barnbow Lasses, which is a free story which schools have been accessing during the autumn of 2021 to help us to mark Remembrance Day 2021. I've made 3 videos, and this is one of them, talking about how I went about writing the book and why I went about writing the book. And one of the things about this book or story is that it's set in Leeds. And as you can see, I've done a very special sort of image here with a almost perfect, accurate image of what Leeds looks like as a city. And I wanted to talk to you about why I write stories set in our city if you're from Leeds, or in Leeds if you're not from Leeds. The Barnbow Lasses is set in Leeds, and it's set in the Crossgates area, which is roughly, and I'm sure people are going to disagree with my map making here, but Crossgates is roughly there in Leeds. So imagine this is the centre, this is the outskirts of Leeds. Crossgates is there, and it's the story of a factory during the First World War where thousands of women used to work making bombs. And I really like writing stories about Leeds because I'm from Leeds, I support Leeds, and I've read a lot of books, and to be quite honest, when I started reading, I didn't think you could be an author from Leeds. I didn't think there were books from Leeds. I thought that books were made by people from somewhere else, like London, or not even in this country, and the authors couldn't be from Leeds. And I had this crazy idea that books and authors aren't from Leeds, and that meant that I couldn't be an author and I couldn't write books until I realised how wrong I was. There are loads of authors who are from Leeds. I am one of them. And in this sort of short video, I wanted to show you how I've written about Leeds, including this, like the Barnbow Lasses is set very largely in that part of Leeds, but also how there are lots of books and stories set in other parts of Leeds. I had this really important moment in my life when I realised that you could be from Leeds and be an author. You can be from anywhere if you want to be an author. You can be from any background. You don't have to be a special sort of person. You have to be you. And that your best qualification for being a writer, if that's what you want to be, is that you are you. And I learned that. I discovered that there was a poet from Leeds, and this radically changed my life. I discovered there was a poet called Tony Harrison, and he's a really, I'll see if there's a picture of him. There isn't a picture of him. He's a really well-known poet. He's quite old now, but he used to write stories, and he used to write poetry, and he wrote a poem about lots of poems about what it was like being from Leeds. He was brought up, and I'm going to get my facts right here, in Beeston. So hang on, so that's Leeds city centre. Is that sort of roughly Beeston there, which is quite near the city centre? And he went, and he was brought up in a very sort of tough part of the city, and his family weren't very well off, but he did really well at school, so he went to the grammar school in Leeds, which at the time I think was roughly there on the other side of the city centre. And he wrote lots of poems about being from Leeds and what that meant to him. And he wrote a poem about, it was a poem that was a lot to do with Leeds United. And I won't mention what it is now because it's quite controversial, so I shouldn't draw you towards it. But Ellen Road Stadium's roughly there. Don't check my geography. And I read this poem, which I support Leeds United, as you know, and I couldn't believe it that there was a poem about Leeds United that includes the lines, "The ground where Leeds United play and disappoint their fans week after week," which isn't quite the case now since Bielsa arrived. So that for me amazed me that Leeds could be in a poem, and it made me think, hang on, there's a poet from Leeds. So I did some more research, and I found out there was novelists from Leeds, people who write novels, playwrights, all sorts of different. If you've heard of Swallows and Amazons by Arthur Ransom, which is quite an old children's book, but a very famous one, Arthur Ransom, everyone thinks he was from the Lake District because he set all his books there, but he wasn't. He was from Leeds. And there are loads of writers from Leeds. And if you're from another city and another town, there are loads of writers from where you're from as well. So this really inspired me. And so when I started being a writer, aware that there were novelists and poets from Leeds, male and female, it really inspired me to write stories set in Leeds. So the Barnbow Lasses, I've set that in Cross Gates. Let's have a look. This one, Foul Play. This is a series of books I wrote. There's a couple of other book covers there. This is set in Leeds. It doesn't say it's Leeds, but if you know Leeds, it is set in Leeds. It includes scenes set in Roundy Park, which is roughly there. Oakwood Clock, which is roughly there. Round the back of Ellen Road, so sort of round there. Leeds Bradford Airport, there's one of the scenes is set up there. I've set stories all over the city, and because I think it was really important, this moment I had in my life when I thought, hang on, this is set in Leeds. I know these streets, I know these parts of my city, and the same went for these poems. And I wanted to do the same. I wanted to represent my city and tell stories set in my part of the world. Another book that I wrote sort of more recently features a real person from Leeds, because like in the same way the Barnbow Lasses is a story about real people who lived there. A lot of them lived in this part of Leeds, but some of them lived in York out there, some of them lived in Castleford, and all this part of Leeds. A lot of them, sort of the girls who worked in the factory lived around there. This story is about a boy who came from Poland to live in Leeds. He came to live in Leeds, and he came to this country in 1945 as a refugee from Poland. There are many people in our city who are refugees, or people who have come from other places in the world to come to Leeds. One of the brilliant things about Leeds is that we're made up of lots of people who've come from so many different places. I love that about our city, and this is based on a guy called Arek Hirsch, who was from Poland. He went through the very difficult time of the Holocaust during the Second World War. He was Jewish, but he came to settle in Leeds, and he now lives in Harewood, which is just almost off the edge of my map. If you've ever been to Harewood House, he doesn't live in the house, he lives in the little village next to it. But so the person this book is based on lives just on the outskirts of Leeds, and that's really important to me and really central to what I do. So when Leeds Schools Library Service, who are wonderful and who I love, said, we'd like you to write a First World War story for us set in Leeds, I jumped at the chance, and that is why I wrote the Barnbow Lasses. And I think if you read this, especially if you're from the Crossgates area, you would see that it's set in a park and in some fields and on some streets around the city of Leeds that you can actually visit now. These are not made up places. This is a story set in the history of Leeds. I think I've said everything I wanted to say, but I suppose the bottom line of what I wanted to say is I used to think that you couldn't be an author if you were from Leeds. I used to think books couldn't be set in Leeds until I found out they are. And I am standing in front of you now, sort of. I'm from Leeds. I write books set in Leeds. And if that's something you want to do, I would really look forward to that, because in the future, when I stop writing books and I'm just sitting in my armchair wanting something to read, I'd love to read books set in Leeds, poetry set in Leeds, plays set in Leeds by you. Definitely. Thank you for listening, and all the very best for now. Goodbye.